The Admirals are some of the highest characters on the One Piece power level scale, and they're one of the earliest characters, if not the only, that Luffy has been washed and packed by before the time skip. Among the three renowned admirals in Marineford, Akainu is considered by the plot and fans alike to be the strongest. He was nearly unstoppable throughout the war at Marineford, sent several characters to their graves, and left a permanent scar on Luffy's chest. As an admiral, Akainu possesses a very powerful Logia-type devil fruit, that is, the magma fruit, which turns him into a fiery, hot, and explosive magma human. He's considered the benchmark of power throughout the first half of the Grand Line, so in this video, let's go over Akainu's anatomical and power level breakdown as we dive into the details of his feats and his fruit. Who is Sakazuki? How did he rise up in the ranks in the Marines? One of the most prominent members of the Marines, Sakazuki, was born 55 years before the events of One Piece in the North Blue. Early in his life, he adopted a very unapproachable demeanor. In Oda's art, he was shown holding a dagger with blood splattered on his pants as a very young boy. We don't know what kind of life he lived, but it can be assumed that he must have had a rough upbringing that led to him getting hardened too early, especially since he had a very strong sense of justice. It's very possible that his father was an important person, maybe a high-ranking Marine, who was killed by a pirate, which led to Akainu's extreme distaste towards the lawless faction of the world. He joined the Marines at the age of 23 alongside Borsalino, who was 26 years old at the time. Eventually, he rose through the ranks, becoming a vice admiral and sharing the spot with Kuzan, among others. Unlike Kuzan, who believed in lazy justice and was much more mutable, Sakazuki believed in absolute justice and stood strictly against anyone who broke the law in any shape or form, especially pirates. As a vice admiral, he was present during the Buster Call at Ohara. It was he who called for the bombing of the escape boat that was supposed to carry out citizens from Ohara who weren't archaeologists and historians. It was this call that surprised even Kuzan and cemented Sakazuki's ideology of absolute justice, at least in his mind, as he believed evil had to be completely eradicated on the off chance that an archaeologist was secretly aboard that ship. During this instance, he went on to mention that if even one archaeologist were to escape, it would make all the sacrifices made with the Buster Call a waste. What we can see here is that Sakazuki is aware of the fact that people are being sacrificed, not killed just because he thinks they're evil, but sacrificed, which has a more benign connotation than killing someone because you think they're the scum of the earth. This is in strange juxtaposition to his idea of justice and what constitutes evil, since the archaeologists of Ohara simply wanted to find out the truth of the world. They had no intentions of using ancient weapons and marching against the world government, at least not back then. It's simply the fact that the details regarding the Void Century can upturn the world government as we know it, which just so happens to be the primary antagonistic faction of the story. At some point in his life, Sakazuki became an admiral in the Marines and acquired the moniker of Akainu, which stands for Red Dog. The red seems to refer to his magma, and the dog is probably just the fact that he's loyal as a dog to the Marines, and by extension the government. He doesn't seem to be like Garp, who's hell-bent on not serving directly under the Celestial Dragons, which is why he chose to always remain a Vice Admiral. He's also not like Aokiji, who's more morally mutable. You could go out on a limb and say that Akainu was the dog of the world government. In fact, he was a menace against the Whitebeard pirates, Luffy, and the entire opposition during the Paramount War at Marineford, killing Ace, almost killing Luffy and Jinbei, and landing some fatal hits on Whitebeard himself. This war was then followed by the former Fleet Admiral, Sengoku, retiring from his position, opening up this new spot for someone to take over. Akainu and Aokiji fought for this spot at Punk Hazard for 10 days straight, and this drawn-out battle resulted in Akainu's victory, prompting Aokiji to leave the Marines and promoting Akainu from Admiral to Fleet Admiral. In this new position, we mostly see Akainu away from action and confined to his desk job. However, he's always angry, always irritated, and calls for absolute justice at all times, no matter the sacrifices, with no regard for collateral damage. It's hard to say whether he's evil, since we don't know whether Akainu himself is aware of the details of the Void Century. He seems to be unaware of Imu, which is what we know, and as a result, is unaware of the true nature of the organization he's fighting for. Although he is an antagonist, from his perspective and the point of view of the civilians of the One Piece world, Akainu is a powerful man who strongly enforces law and justice against the notorious pirates to make the world a safer place. How powerful is Akainu? Akainu's run as the heavy hitter in Marineford and his battle for the position of the fleet admiral. Each admiral is notably powerful. In terms of power levels, they'd sit above a warlord but below a Yonko. There are exceptions to this rule, of course, since Mihawk is definitely stronger than the admirals and Buggy is surely weaker. A case could be made for Hancock as well due to the hack that she can petrify those who are attracted to her, and the majority of the characters seem to fall victim to her charms. That being said, it's unlikely for someone like Akainu to be moved by Hancock due to his hatred for pirates as a whole and his extremely strong will. Among Akainu, Aokiji, Kizaru, Green Bull, and Fujitora, Akainu seems to be the strongest as per feats since he was on a diabolical run in Marineford and overshadowed both Aokiji and Kizaru. In fact, the Paramount War was when we saw him in action for the very first time. His first feat was against Diamond Jozu from the Whitebeard Pirates, who hurled a huge iceberg at the Marine base. Akainu used a massive magma punch called the Great Eruption, courtesy of his Devil Fruit, and vaporized the iceberg. But the bigger feat was what came next as the Admiral showed molten rock across the battlefield to the point that one of Whitebeard's ships was destroyed. This trail of magma also ended up incapacitating the Revolutionary Army members Ivankov and Inazuma. One of Akainu's subsequent attacks managed to destroy Whitebeard's main ship, the Moby Dick. Akainu launched his giant magma fist into the air, sending out blasts of lava to the sky. This in turn caused the clouds to turn gray from smoke, from which a barrage of magma punches rained down all over the Whitebeard pirates. Not only did it destroy the ice base they were fighting on, but it caught Moby Dick from the back, destroying Whitebeard's ship. Eventually, Whitebeard himself joined the main battle and clashed against Akainu. As a Yonko with incredible Haki, the Tremor fruit that could cause large-scale earthquakes and tsunamis, the reputation of being the strongest man in the world, and the experience of having gone toe-to-toe against Roger in the past, Akainu should technically not be able to stand against Whitebeard. However, the Whitebeard we see in Marineford is not only much older, but he's weakened due to his illness and is often seen coughing blood, which puts Akainu in a position where he can clash against the Yonko without getting washed in a second. At first, Akainu was able to stop the swing of Whitebeard's weapon, the Naginata, which could destroy the island. During this, Akainu simply used one leg to hold back the attack, which Whitebeard had attempted to launch using both hands. His weapon is humongous too, and was clad in a quake bubble to enhance the power. The Devil Fruit abilities of the two then clashed evenly, more or less, causing a rampage across Marineford. However, Whitebeard's tremors ended up causing large-scale devastation at Marineford, and by extension, the entire island. Akainu only got the advantage when Whitebeard coughed up blood, creating an opening for the Admiral to land a near-fatal blow on the Yonko. With this, Akainu burned a hole into Whitebeard's chest. This is an attack that could have killed anyone, but of course, Whitebeard is Whitebeard, so he survived. After Luffy freed Ace, Akainu remained unfazed for the most part because he was convinced he could handle it. He clashed against Ace for a while and completely dominated the battle. Hell-bent on killing both Ace and Luffy, Akainu did not let them off for a second and almost used one of his strongest attacks against Luffy while trying to catch the protagonist off guard. However, Ace came in between Luffy and Akainu and took the hit from behind. The punch completely burned through Ace's organs and jutted out of his chest, making it visibly clear that Akainu had landed a fatal blow. As we all know, Ace didn't survive the attack. A clawed arm attack was able to blow off half of Whitebeard's face, which we didn't see in the anime since it was censored to only remove half of Yonko's mustache. All in all, Akainu had landed a huge hit on Whitebeard that burned through his chest, and another huge hit that had clawed out half of his face. Despite Whitebeard's illness and age, this is an insane feat, since the Marineford arc made it more than evident what kind of devastation even a weakened Whitebeard is capable of, as he destroyed the Marine headquarters and the island. Even with half of his head blown off, Whitebeard then managed to send Akainu flying. This is proof of how durable Akainu is, and a testament to his immense endurance since he was able to withstand two point-blank Haki-coated quake attacks from Whitebeard back-to-back. In fact, the second blow that had landed on his midsection was powerful enough to split the island of Marineford in two, but Akainu not only withstood it, he was able to continue fighting. He only took some damage to his face and eventually went on to critically injure Whitebeard. Other characters he clashed against were Marco, Vista, and Jinbei. He was able to burn Jinbei's arm, who had tried to block a subsequent attack on Ace from Akainu, who tried to finish off the pirate immediately. He also struggled little to none against Marco and Vista, who were using armament Haki. With the arrival of Law, Luffy being nearly catatonic due to the trauma of witnessing Ace's death, Akainu desperately trying to kill Luffy due to him being the son of the dragon, and Jinbei trying his best to protect Luffy and take him to safety, Akainu charged after Luffy and Jinbei, attempting to kill them. He sent a punch right through Jinbei, landing a devastating blow on the fishman and Luffy at once. At present, we don't see any scars on Jinbei, but the large burn mark on Luffy's chest exists due to Akainu's attack. The crocodile's intervention allowed Luffy and Jinbei to escape. Towards the end of the battle, Koby was distraught over the ever-increasing death toll and yelled for the fighting to stop. Akainu, who was hell-bent on finishing the entire business once and for all, was the one who intercepted Koby's pleas. Naturally, Koby's nature went against what Akainu considered justice, and we know that this Admiral is not the most empathetic of the bunch, so he tried to land a magma punch on Koby. Luckily for Koby, Shanks arrived in the nick of time and blocked Akainu's attack with his sword. Shanks' sword was not incinerated as he was using armament Haki, which we didn't know of back then. Everybody knows how powerful Shanks' Haki is, so he was able to block Akainu with ease. The next time Akainu took part in a battle was when he fought Aokiji and Punk Hazard over the title of Fleet Admiral. The battle went on for 10 days due to the admirals being nearly equal in strength. After a long struggle, Akainu rose as the victor with half of Aokiji's left leg amputated. He chose not to take Aokiji's life due to them being comrades, but the latter eventually quit the Navy as he didn't wish to serve under Akainu. Despite the victory, Akainu acquired permanent scarring from Aokiji's ice, with the evidence encompassing one side of his neck and creeping up his cheek. The massive battle also changed the geography of Punk Hazard, with one half turning into a ridiculously hot location with volcanic eruptions and fire as a result of Akainu's magma powers. From all of these instances, it's evident how insanely high Akainu's AP is. However, there's more to what makes him so lethal than just his destructive strength. Akainu can be extremely manipulative when necessary. Former Fleet Admiral Sengoku had secretly planned to execute Ace rather than the designated time during the Paramount War. To make the plan work out, Akainu targeted Captain Squard, who was an ally of the Whitebeard Pirates. All members and allies of the Whitebeard Pirates were extremely loyal to the Yonko and referred to him as their father, while they were referred to as sons by Whitebeard. So a backhanded trick had to be used, and that's exactly what Akainu did. He convinced Squard that Whitebeard had negotiated with the Marines to spare Ace at the expense of the other members. As a result, the Marines would only attack Whitebeard's allies instead of Whitebeard himself and Ace. However, Akainu claimed that he would just spare Squard and his crew if they were to betray Whitebeard and kill, or at least weaken him. Eventually, Squard impaled Whitebeard through the chest, weakening Whitebeard temporarily. Akainu used his manipulation tactics again to prevent the Whitebeard pirates from retreating with Ace. He provoked Ace and used his attachment to Whitebeard as leverage and claimed that Whitebeard would die the death of a loser as he was a little fish in a large barrel. It worked, and Ace was extremely triggered, which led to him and Akainu clashing. And we know how that went, as it managed to turn Ace into Katakuri's food of choice, a donut. This leaves one very important facet of this conversation, Akainu's Haki. He definitely has armament and observation Haki. His first usage of armament Haki was seen when Whitebeard sent a quake at the executive platform. With Kizaru and Aokiji, Akainu emitted a shield to deflect and stop Whitebeard's shockwave. The emission of a shield conveys that all three admirals used advanced armament Haki. It's also a given that Whitebeard was using his Haki during the battle, so Akainu landing fatal hits on him meant that he was able to bypass Whitebeard's armament Haki, providing the Yonko was using it to shield his body as defense and not just for his offensive attacks. Whitebeard can also use Conqueror's Haki, but due to his sickness, he seems to be incapable of using it to amp his quakes with advanced Conquerors. Akainu would most probably fall against Whitebeard if the latter were to use Conquerors. Marco and Vista's Haki was something Akainu managed to shrug off easily. The one person whose armament Haki completely outclassed Akainu's would be Shanks's, and he blocked Akainu's magma punch with ease. However, it's possible that the gap between their armament Haki isn't that large, since it's likely that Akainu was only about to use a standard magma punch against Koby. Akainu does possess observation Haki, as he should ideally not be able to fight all the heavy hitters of the Whitebeard pirates without it. We know that Marco is a capable user of Haki as well, and Akainu dodging his attacks could imply the existence of his advanced observation Haki or future sight, but there's no solid evidence for this. As Fleet Admiral, however, it only makes sense that he would have future sight. But then again, there is the instance of Luffy's escape in the Polar Tang with Law, where none of the admirals could sense if he was dead or alive following Akainu's attack on Jinbei and Luffy. The only one who managed to do so was Boa Hancock. By this logic, Boa Hancock either has insanely good observation Haki that outclasses the Admirals and Sengoku, or she has a similar case to Sanji's. Basically, Sanji's observation Haki only works for women in distress, and this has been the case since pre-time skip. Similarly, Hancock might experience better observation Haki when Luffy is in the picture due to the fact that she is extremely bad for him. But either way, the range of Akainu's observation Haki seems to have a smaller limit. Garp might have noticed that Luffy was alive and obviously ignored it. We also know Mihawk's observation Haki is insane since he was able to sense the events of the Reverie while in the Gloom Kingdom, which is an insane feat. These examples scale Akainu below Hancock and Mihawk when it comes to observation Haki. And finally, we have Conqueror, which Akainu has not been shown to have. He doesn't have the necessary kingly ambitions to do so either. One could argue that Whitebeard has Conquerors despite not wanting to be a king, but Whitebeard's ambition has been to have a large family, which is a kingly ambition in its own way. It can denote Whitebeard's kingly desire for something akin to a familial kingdom. Akainu's ambition is the eradication of what he considers evil, and in his eyes, anything that's against the law, in this case pirates, is evil. However, he is strong-willed enough to resist Conquerors. When Luffy let out a ginormous burst of his Conqueror, which incapacitated several soldiers from the Marines and even pirates from the opposing faction, Akainu was one of the few characters, alongside Kizaru, Aokiji, Whitebeard, Ace, Garp, Jinbei, and Ivankov, who managed to resist it. Akainu's Devil Fruit, the man made of magma who has permanently altered geography. Akainu possesses the Logia-type Magu Magu no Mi, or the Magma fruit, which turns him into an intangible magma man. As a result, he can turn into magma, generate magma, and control magma. Any attack lacking in armament Haki will pass right through him. Magma is even hotter than fire and also explosive due to its connection with volcanoes, giving Akainu insanely high AP and destructive force in battle. He can burn, melt, and destroy almost anything in his path. Even among all Logias, the magma fruit seems to come with the greatest level of attack power. Because he can control and alter magma, he can create a claw with his attacks via substance generation and manipulation. This attack is the Hellhound, and it's a reference to Akainu's alias that translates into Red Dog. He has another attack known as the Dog-Biting Crimson Lotus, which can bite Akainu's target and set them on fire. Concerning attacks like Great Eruption, Akainu's magma punches rain down on his opponents like gigantic magma-fisted meteor-like projectiles, giving him access to methods of combat beyond close combat. These punches, as we've seen, can devastate battlefields. Akainu's Devil Fruit seem to be awakened for this reason, as he can send attacks while being physically detached from it. This is also probably the reason he was able to permanently alter the geography of Punk Hazard alongside Aokiji. Concerning his magma fists raining down, we can connect his ability to that of Enel's lightning in Skypiea. It's not confirmed, but seems to be a given that aside from having long-range observation Haki or mantra, Enel also had an awakened fruit that allowed him to send down lightning from afar on the citizens of Skypiea or the intruders in Verth. Based on this, Akainu definitely had his fruit awakened in Skypiea. The heat of the magma also makes it hard for opponents to approach Akainu, even if they have armament Haki, and as a result can block or attack the Admiral. He can also use this heat to tunnel through the ground, melt anything in his path, and use jet bursts to fly using his magma as a propeller. This is how he caught up to Luffy and Jinbei during their escape, and he was quite fast about it too. Now, while all Logias are stronger, some seem to be stronger than others, and in Akainu's case, his magma seems to be stronger than Aokiji's ice due to the natural advantage, while it most definitely is superior in comparison to Ace's Flame fruit, with Akainu's fruit being the more advanced version of the one Ace has. This might not be the reason why he was able to turn Ace into a donut, since armament Haki comes into play here, but when the two of them had clashed, Akainu had easily outclassed Ace not just with power, but due to visible elemental advantage. Is Akainu one of the strongest characters in the story? Is he truly one of the strongest members of the Marines? Yes, if you don't count Monkey D. Garp, since it's implied that he is the strongest member of the Marines. We've also seen the scale of Garp's galaxy impact in Hachinosu, and despite Akainu's high AP, he hasn't caused any attack with the level of large-scale devastation that Garp has with galaxy impact. We should also take into account that in his prime, Garp was on a similar level to Roger, so surely Prime Garp is stronger than Akainu. However, the Garp from Marineford is nerfed by age, and yet Sengoku ensured that Akainu did not clash against Garp since Ace was his grandson. But Akainu's victory is not impossible against the present Garp, but it would be an extremely difficult fight. What is interesting is that Akainu won against Aokiji and is considered to be stronger, but Aokiji won against Garp in a fistfight alone. We break this down in our video on Aokiji's anatomy, so do check that out, and that being said, it's highly likely that Garp was not going all out against Aokiji since he was his former apprentice. Based on this, Akainu is probably the second strongest member of the Marines, but definitely not in the world government, where he gets outclassed by Imu and the Elders and even the Holy Knights, who we haven't seen in action, but it makes sense for them to be stronger than the Admirals since they're directly affiliated with the Gorosei and can be promoted to the rank of an Elder, as seen with Figurlin Garling being given Saturn's position. Now, is Akainu one of the strongest characters in One Piece barring the top of the world government? Kinda doesn't seem like it with the presence of heavy hitters like Mihawk, Shanks, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Kaido, Big Mom, Blackbeard, Rayleigh, maybe even some of the strongest giants of Elbaf, and so on. Some of this is self-explanatory with Shanks and Mihawk, since the two narratively seem to be rivals who tie one another in battle, and Marineford has proven that Shanks is stronger, but for the sake of simplicity, let's pit Akainu against the monster trio. When compared to Luffy and Zoro, Akainu doesn't win. First of all, while Akainu is stronger than Kizaru, or at least that's the common assumption, the gap between them probably isn't that high. And yet, Luffy toyed with Kizaru in Egghead. Luffy's speed blitzing Kizaru, who is light itself, also means that he's faster than Akainu. Luffy is confirmed to have all three types of Haki with its advanced forms, and while Akainu might have the same for observation and armament, he hasn't shown any signs of having Conqueror's Haki, let alone advanced Conqueror's Haki. And judging based on devil fruits, Akainu has a very powerful one, but Luffy's fruit happens to be a mythical zone god model. Luffy is also resistant to heat for the most part, which gives him a huge advantage over someone like Akainu. If we put Akainu against Zoro, Akainu still loses, because Zoro, with his Haki and Asura mode, was able to scar Kaido, who is one of the most durable characters in One Piece. There is no reason for Zoro to not be able to beat Akainu. He's also faster, visibly, and Zoro's endurance is known by everyone. The only place where Akainu might have an advantage over Zoro is when it comes to durability. While Zoro hasn't shown off advanced armament Haki, his base armament Haki was able to slice through Pika like butter. He's also kind of already fought a fire user with his victory against King. In fact, he managed to cut through King's insanely durable body, and more so than that, Zoro has halted Big Mom and Kaido's Haki-fueled joint attack, Hakai, or the Conquest of the Sea, which is far more powerful than anything Akainu has shown us so far. So it doesn't make sense for Zoro to lose to Akainu, as he can just cut through his attacks. Against Sanji, once again, Akainu will fail to leave any permanent damage due to Sanji's extremely powerful exoskeleton. Sanji may also be resistant to fire and heat-based attacks since he can light himself on fire. The same could apply to Ace, but he doesn't possess the Germa genes like Sanji does. So we can assume Sanji is in a situation where he might not have Akainu's AP, but he can withstand and tank everything Akainu can throw in his direction. Pre-time skips, he would fold the Straw Hats left, right, and center. Luffy was visible fodder when it came to power in Marineford and was outclassed by many of the characters. But with the members of the monster trio now using Haki and having had several power-ups, they should surely be able to beat Akainu as a Yonko or as the commanders of a Yonko crew. Marvelous verdict! It's a shame we're not getting to see much of Akainu in action since he's confirmed to his desk job as the Fleet Admiral. For someone who took out his opponents one by one in Marineford, Akainu clearly feels horrible about how little his new position allows him to fight. So really, he won the battle against Aokiji and Punk Hazard, but seems to have lost the war since Kuzan is living a good life. But one can expect to see Akainu in full force once again, maybe in the final war. Watching him get outclassed by current Luffy would be a fun sight too, for the sake of Ace. But having Akainu powered up even more and becoming tougher would be a better fight, because unlike Kizaru, Akainu would never let being turned into a pizza slide. With that, today's video comes to an end. Did you like it? What are your thoughts on Admiral Akainu? Did we miss any of his best moments? We want to hear all about it in the comments down below. Until next time, this is Wizard Wheezy signing off, but thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.